Hey,
Jackie, hi. I guess you know everybody here, except for Aaron, Janice's friend.
hey. Have you heard the good news? He is risen.
The titular line, he is risen. Welcome to Cut to Black, a Sopranos sit-down. I'm Jim Scampoli, and I've seen every episode of The Sopranos.
I'm Jacob Burrows, and I've seen 34 episodes of The Sopranos by now, because we've gotten all the way to Season 3, Episode 8, He is Risen, the titular line indeed. I know I brought this up last week, but we're really blasting through Season 3, it feels like. It's another Ralphie episode. You can always tell early on when it's going to be a Ralphie episode because he's in it, and sometimes he's just not in it, and then they say like, oh, Miami, I came back from Miami, and I'm like, okay, I guess so. He's been gone, now he's back, and he's risen.
Now, this episode was written by Robin Green, Mitchell Burgess, and Todd A. Kessler, directed by Alan Coulter. These are all Sopranos mainstays. The thing I got to wonder, though, and I'm not saying that this is like a bad episode, but it feels like with some of these middle episodes of Season 3, I'm trying to figure out the direction we're going. Because I kind of, in relation to what you said, like the Ralphie thing, it was almost like we took a break from it for a little bit, and now we're back. And now it's like, okay, remember? Let's get back into this. Not that it was that long ago, but it does feel like they're doing weird things. And I mean, obviously, like David Chase and the people that write Sopranos are all genius. But then I wonder if sometimes they fuck up, but everyone's like, oh my God, that's just part of the genius.
Yeah, I mean, I will say from my uninitiated point of view, maybe I feel like we're blasting through the season because I'm here and I'm like, well, what's the main focus of this season? I guess it's Ralphie because he's here and there and everywhere. So it's like, oh, I guess he's the, he's the big guy this season that we're going to kill by the end of it. That's what it feels like. And it's hard to get away from that kind of because maybe I'm just remembering it with rose-tinted glasses, but I feel like in Season 2 I knew more what the season was about at this point in the season. It's Episode 8. Like you mentioned, it has been a bit all over the place, especially I think it's the first 2 episodes part of it that propelled us in a certain direction. There's definitely like recurring themes, things going on, like with Junior's whole storyline is very intriguing and nice with him getting sick and everything, all of that stuff. And his caretaker's father, the way he passed away and all of that. But I will say that it's a bit misty for me because it's a lot of stuff about Jackie Jr. and we'll get even more into that this episode.
Yeah, Jackie Jr.'s back. And yeah, I guess maybe in their defense, there clearly was a plan with Livia and, the real world took over and she passed away. So they may have had to make quite a few adjustments. But yes, so we're back. With this episode, he is risen. I love that they gave the titular line to that, quirky Janice boyfriend, whatever he is, character, pastor or something, now that she's a born again. Because even that, like the Janice thing, like I forgot that she found God or whatever a few episodes ago. And this is the extension of that. But anyways, we start out, we see Caitlin and Meadow at a college party. Jackie Jr.'s there. Now, one of the best things about this episode, I will say, though, is this build of the Jackie Jr. and Meadow relationship, because Jackie Jr. does nothing except be a piece of shit, but Meadow, and by the end of it, Meadow thinks he's this knight in shining armor. I mean, I guess he could be a bigger piece of shit because he could be like a cliche date rapist when she passes out, but he just takes a little gander and then he leaves. So he's a good guy. He's not mad that she crashed his car, so he's a good guy. But he'll also build it up to her and be like, "You could have died, but let's get you home. I just want to make sure you're okay." It's so great that it's just we all know he's just trying to get laid, but he's a piece of shit.
Yeah, I do love him going like, "Oh, I don't know what I would do if anything happened to you," which I guess in his mind is probably true, but it's like something you say after you've been dating for, I don't know, like 2 years. And for him, it's like, I don't know. He's a weirdo. He's a spaz. He's not the best guy, but he's just a guy. He's the guy with the X, and the first hit's free, and that's supposed to be a gentlemanly thing.
Exactly.
That's what you do just to get people addicted, right? For you. Oh, the first one's free. Wow, what a gentleman. What a knight in shining armor.
They have so many great little moments like that where, yeah, I guess to Jackie, he probably thinks he's doing a good thing. But when you really think about it, he's just, yeah, that's what anyone does, or any drug dealer would probably do. Oh, hey, for you assume he's just going to be like, hey, your money's no good here. We go way back. But no, hey, for you, I'll give you one hit for free. Don't worry. Or then, like, I mean, I guess we're jumping around a bit, but I love how he gets so mad that she won't, like, go to his friend's house and fuck him. And then he, like, drives away, blows past the stop signs. Because she makes like a very rational, even though Meadow is being melodramatic about her Noah relationship, but it's a rational thing. Like, look, I was just dating a guy, and I like hanging out with you, but just give me a little time. And he's like, fine. Fucking drives out of there, blows the stop sign. It's so great.
Well, of course he's like, oh, you'd go with that Moulignon, but not with me, or whatever he says. But so we'll get way into it, I'm sure, even further. But let's talk about another cool guy. We go to a casino here where Ralphie's doing some betting. He's on a roll. He's playing this game you always see in movies and TV. You throw the dice and whatever. He's on a roll. He can't stop now. Tony walks in. It's a big deal that he doesn't go over right away to say what up. They make it very clear that it's a big deal because all the characters are like, whoa, she's not doing the thing. What the fuck? Meanwhile, we're like, it's okay. It's a casino. I guess this is another casino they own. He does go over eventually, and they have some tense conversation there about how you look good. Want a drink? Another time, Anthony. He's being like, they're both like, oh, I'm going to kill you. No, I'm going to kill you. Thank you very much.
Well, what I love about this whole thing is that it's all like, it's very high school. Jesus, I just realized I fucked up the audio. Edit that out. Anyways, it's all very high school. And I guess, but this is also true to probably any job anyways, like the weird politicking you have to do. But I love that they kind of boil this down to like high school girls in a way where everyone acts a certain way in public, but everyone knows what's going on. And then they kind of slink off into their little groups and they talk about each other and what's going on. And then they like kind of talk about each other behind their backs. And then when they're in their face, they kind of act a certain way to posture. I love that you take this, the Sopranos always talks about the classic American film, the gangster movie, the high action and the drugs and the shootings and everything. And then we just boil it down to like, you see how I didn't take that drink from him? You think I'm afraid of that fat fuck? No offense. I like what they do here because it really is just like bitch shit, if I could be so bold.
Well, I'm sure high school boys do the same thing in a way. I believe they do. But yeah, it's got a certain vibe to it where they're like, oh, the drink. Oh, it's no big deal. Haha. And then they're off laughing like, we should kill this guy immediately. Did you see how he looked at you? Did you see how he talked to you? And meanwhile, they're just saying, oh, another time. Oh, okay. But yeah, it is dangerous territory. For everyone involved, and like Ralphie is, that's the next scene we see with Tony there, where he's talking to Silvio, where there's like, oh, I couldn't believe how rude he was. But again, we're sort of informed through the context of what other characters say, the rules of the world, where Silvio, because it's Silvio saying it, we realize, yeah, Tony was out of line because of this and this, where he says, oh, because he tactfully brings up that, well, in a way, he does have a legitimate beef. Maybe you should do something about it. And he does say Ralphie's star is rising. Again, another potential title reference.
Yeah, because Tony does bring up that, the girl, she just turned 20 years old, but then Silvio points out, but the fact of the matter is she wasn't your wife, a guma, or blood relation.
Yes.
So, and I guess that does tie into what Ralphie says when it happens, like you're choosing a civilian over me because they have this thing of ours. But Silvio does put it on the table where it's not out of realm that if Tony just decided, since he is the boss, he could just decide to kill him because he basically says, either kill him or fucking apologize.
Yeah.
Those are your choices. And Tony's like, I don't want to do either of them. He makes a lot of money, but I hate him.
Oh, Ralphie's a good earner. I've heard that a million times by now. I guess that's why he gets to be the crazy one. But yeah, he does say, what was it? That let's see, I'm just trying to find the exact thing here. Yeah, that he, should apologize, should give him a bit of the casino, should do a bit of that, whatever, like just to get it over with. Either kill him or make nice. I would have thought that Tony would have said she was fucking pregnant and that would matter to these people, but it's like never brought up except later by Ralphie when he says, when he's talking to Johnny Sachs from New York, and he says like, oh, it wasn't even my kid she had. That would have been more sort of, I don't know, I feel like that's relevant because there is a possibility that that's true, but that would not that would make him any less of a piece of shit. But they did put in that scene of a police officer and him both in the closet assaulting her and everything. So, it's potentially true. Not that that makes anything okay, but I would have thought that the fact that she was pregnant and 20 years old would have been relevant to these people, these Catholic Italians and everything.
I think they purposely have it not matter because I think what David Chase is trying to do is take that sheen away of like honor amongst thieves of like that, they, because that's something you would put in like even, I haven't seen The Godfather in a while, but like it's not in The Godfather, but movies like that where they try to make it seem like, we're like criminals, but prison justice, like this idea that someone's going to go to jail and they're going to be like, what, he raped a girl, we're going to kill him. I think they just want to make it very clear that no one really gives a shit. Like there's this weird thing where they're kind of like, oh yeah, I guess that sucks that she's young, but she was a hua, so what are you gonna do?
Yeah. And throughout the episode, Silvio's the first, but people bring up, oh, maybe you should make him captain. And at this point, he's like, over my dead body. Previously, it was just, why was it previously that he wasn't made captain? It was just like, I don't trust him or something?
Yeah, it was the whole thing of how just the standard that Ralphie's like a maniac that we've seen in the other episodes where
that's fair.
He would undermine Tony and like make comments. It was just more Tony didn't like him, but clearly now it's gotten to the point with what happened that now he's fucking done with him, except he loves all the money he makes him. I do like they throw in the thing of how Paulie immediately wants to kill him, but then Silvio kind of explains that away, that Paulie's kind of threatened by how good Ralphie is as far as like making money for the skip.
Yeah.
So it's more just about like a selfish thing.
Yeah. And you're right, we do get to see them both slink off to their separate groups where Ralphie's having a late meal with two other people that I vaguely recognize, from previous episodes.
Yeah, Vito and another guy. I forget the other guy's name.
Yeah. And they're talking about, well, he's throwing out his theories about, oh, he had to be fucking that hua and everything, and Thanksgiving gets brought up and so on. But moving on beyond that, let's see. We have a scene at the Bing where, is this the pastor from the previous? Yeah, it is.
Yeah, they have him pop up again, and they're all loading up stolen turkeys for Thanksgiving. And Hesh kind of makes a comment as well about Ralph and the drink, and word's getting out. Everyone's talking. People want to know what's going on and what Tony's going to do about it.
Yeah. And another quick scene there. We got to check in with Jackie Jr. The Thanksgiving preparations are underway because, Jackie Jr.'s mother wants to know if he's going to come. And he's like, oh, is Meadow going to be there? Meanwhile, Meadow's talking to Carmilla like, oh, is Jackie going to be there? Because they had their little fling. We kind of, briefly touched on it. They had a little kissing, and then that was the end of that when she passed out. But yeah, so some flirting back and forth, and of course Tony storms in like, what, you just talked to her? No, we can't have them here, not in this house.
Yeah, I do like, I was a little surprised because I expected that Carmilla would be like how Rosalie is, like all excited, but maybe it just is that element of like, oh no, I don't want Meadow to be with someone that might be on the same level of Tony or maybe part of this life, I guess. But Carmella's not too, like, actually, she's not like that she cares, really. It's not like she's excited, but she isn't like, oh no, don't be with this guy. but Rosalie's all excited. And then yeah, Tony says, "What this? No more Jetsons dinner with Mr. Spacely or whatever the fuck." Yeah, not going to Mr. Spacely's house for dinner anymore, and he's looking for antacids or something. He slams the turkey down. He's all fired up because that's Tony for you.
All
And
fired up, especially in his stomach.
and then we have a scene where that Tony goes to therapy and he runs into Gloria Trillo, who's also waiting because Melfi fucked up, double booked. And
Classic Melfi.
yeah, and that could lead to an encounter. Could this be important? Maybe.
Yeah. Well, I mean, watching this, it's like, I'm sure she won't show up again.
Yeah.
But yeah, because he gets to be a gentleman there, a big bear of a gentleman when he's like, oh, no, you have the therapy. I shall have the therapy later.
I do love the linger that he does when Melfi goes to close the door and Tony just like stands in the hallway and he's like lingering and kind of still staring at Gloria. It's like, oh, great. Tony's got a new conquest. To take his attention away. And then, yeah, Carmela calls Rosalie and cancels, makes up a story about her parents being sick or something or other, her dad being sick, and they want to just kind of keep it low key. And I like Ralph. Well, I was going to say, I like that Ralph's there, like listening, and it's such a like, you know, I guess this is them playing chess in a way. Like, oh, he made the chess move. I wasn't even going to go anyways, but damn it, he just invited me before I could make my big statement.
Yeah, and it is true. He was saying in the previous scene, like, oh, I'm never going to go to that. I think he was saying that at the diner. But yeah, it is funny because he definitely knows what's going on. I would have thought that Carmela would have fought back a bit more against disinviting someone to Thanksgiving, especially making up this elaborate lie. I guess she can come back later and say, oh, it turned out it was nothing. Sorry to worry you and everything. But this is, you know, I keep forgetting her name, but they've had dinner before and clandestine conversations about life and everything. But she's just like, yeah, Tony said I had to do it. And in this case, I guess she can sense that it has something to do with that thing of theirs that they don't talk about. So she goes ahead and does it, which I was a bit surprised by.
Yes. Yeah. Rosalie April. And then what? Then Tony. Oh, then we have Tony with Melfi. And this is like a weird therapy scene because this is very much just Tony talking about mafia shit to Melfi. And I guess maybe Melfi's alluded to this when we've seen her in therapy where she mentions like we sat there for an hour and talked about the RICO statutes. But this is like so on the nose the way he's talking. Like, I got a guy, you know, normally I'd put this guy out to pasture, but you know, he's a good employee. Like he's barely disguising what he's talking about. But then he does bring up the art of war. And that was like an offhanded comment she made earlier. Like, if you want to be a better gangster, read Sun Tzu. Otherwise, we're here for therapy. But here we are just figuring out how to be a better gangster.
It's also shot differently than most therapy scenes. I mean, it's something with the angles, which I also noticed in the waiting room. They go different with it, different than they usually do. I mean, first off, they put the camera on the other side, which isn't that, you know, dramatic of a change. But just the way they're framing it and moving the camera back and forth a bit, it makes it feel really different from usual.
Yeah, and then of course, I mean, it is a nighttime reschedule, so it's like darker too. I mean, I'm not sure what they're really going for with what they're trying to say with, I mean, obviously it's a different setting because of the storyline, but they are purposely doing different things. Like I got the same feel that you're mentioning.
Yeah. And he tries to fish some information about the Mercedes sales lady. And it's almost, you know, like she's like, duh, I can't, you know, I can't tell anyone about patients, right? That's the whole basis of what you are telling me all this shit. You were just telling me this shit. What would you like if I told you someone else about that? And then he gets to offer to walk her to her car and she says no.
Yeah. Okay. But yeah, actually, yeah, that's the real big moment that happens here. Yeah, just that small. I mean, I kind of don't like that they explain it later when they have her in therapy, because I like the moment and you get it. Like, we get it when we see it, and it's acted well. I mean, Lorraine Bracco's a good actor. Tony's a good actor. It's such a nice small gesture, but to us, the audience, and obviously to Melfi, it's such a big deal. And I mean, I guess it doesn't ruin it, but it's a little. I didn't need them to then have her explain it later.
Yeah, that makes sense. So then we move on to actual Thanksgiving. Again, another tradition I have very little insight in, except like I've seen it in so many TV shows. Like most things in life, I learn from movies and TV, so I know what's going on. They're sitting down to watch the game. Is it true what they're saying that the same team plays every Thanksgiving?
Yeah, Detroit typically plays every Thanksgiving, and then maybe Cowboys or something. I don't know.
Doesn't that kind of suck for them that they never get to have Thanksgiving then because they're always playing games?
I guess. I don't know. I never really thought about it that way. It's just like, go play for me. Play for me, football team. Well, I turkey. But I mean, if you've never experienced it, because you're not here in the States, they're nailing it. You're sitting there watching football. There's a weirdo there. And again, they do, when they have this Meadow moment, again, they kind of over-explain it. But I guess it doesn't stick out as much to me, but this is a flashback. I know you're not a fan of these where they do the quick cut, but it is Tony's point of view. So how does this work for you?
I disliked it. Well, not strongly or anything, but it was like, that was superfluous because there was that thing earlier, last episode with the fish, where it's like, okay, we get why you'd put that in, but here it's like, yeah, no, we know where his head's at. We know what's going on. You don't need to hammer it home because if you don't recall, listener, he's looking over at the kitchen. I actually like the moment right before better because Carmilla's there. You can't even see Meadow, and then Carmilla moves out of the way, revealing Meadow. That's a more of a subtle sort of transitional thing. But then he's looking at her, and they cut in a shot of the dead. And it's in slow motion, and it works. There's nothing wrong with it, but it is totally unnecessarily to explain it like that. Because he then he walks up and says, like, you're the most important person in the world to me. I love you more than anything in the world. The sort of shit that Jackie will say to her later in the episode, but he actually means it. And he gets to have this moment of slightly repairing their relationship, hopefully. Like, I'm a bit bored with the whole, oh, Dad, I'm never going to talk to Dad because of my ex. Like, so it, it's a good moment.
Yeah, it is a good moment. I like the moment for Tony, but yeah, I agree. It's a little on the nose to have the flash right before it. And then so then we see Rosalie and Ralphie, and I guess Rosalie's mom, and they're having their little small dark Thanksgiving, and just more classic Jackie Jr., where he is just like a selfish piece of shit because. I mean, his mom says, like, oh, you don't have to stay for dessert. But, like, she wants him to stay. It's Thanksgiving. Like, you're spending time with your family. And he immediately gets up. And even Ralphie, the biggest piece of shit, is like, oh, like, he's like, what'd she just say? And, hey, great Thanksgiving, Ma. And he takes off, of course, because he's going to go see Meadow.
Yeah, take her to a movie or something. So we get to see the contrast between the two dinners of, the one where Ralphie's barely touched his marigot, and then we get to see this great big dinner that they're just wrapping up. They're all cracking up because Tony's throwing nuts at the sleepy guy.
Yeah.
But narcolepsy is a certified dysomnia. It's not a joke, but it is a joke because everyone's laughing. It's one of these Janice things that it's like she could have brought anyone to this, but I love the choice. They get to drop the title in there as well because, of course, he's from Church Group. When Jackie comes in, he gets to drop that on us from the intro there.
Yeah, even Meadow laughs. So yeah, Tony's doing a good job repairing his relationship. And I guess even thinking about going back to Rosalie's Thanksgiving, I mean, it's because we saw Jackie Sr. die in season 1. And then, of course, we saw Richie die. So there's like 2 big pieces of the family that would have been there. So it is like the April name is cursed, basically.
Yeah.
One quick call out too that I love is when the bell rings and Carmilla's mother is like, who could that be? Like, she gets so scared. I think Carmilla's like, it's the Boston Strangler, Ma. Like,
that's true. That is a good moment because again, from television, I understand that Thanksgiving, they're all at home hanging out. It must be the Boston Strangler. It's the only explanation. But yeah, he takes Meadow off to Hunter's place, and we already went over this. They have the conversation. He fucking rips it out of there, like tears out of there so fucking fast.
The only thing we didn't mention is we do finally get confirmation that Jackie's dropped out of school, because every time we see him, Tony's always asking how school is, but now Jackie's at least wise enough to not bother saying like I don't like it or whatever. He's just like, oh yeah, doing great. And then we do learn in kind of like an almost vulnerable, sweet moment that, you know, he wants to get into men's fashion, like be the next Hugo Boss. So it is a weird, in a like very simple, like annoying character. It's like, oh, there's some layers here, like, you know, but it makes sense even in this small line. At least to me, it makes sense. Like, it's probably really hard for him to tell any of his friends that, or like to try to tell Tony, or even like what if he mentions it to Ralphie, like what's Ralphie gonna say? Like, he can't tell anyone that he wants to be Hugo Boss and just design clothes or whatever. So there is this small little tragedy going on with Jackie Jr.
Which is funny because he can talk to Ralphie about, hey, if you need some more X, kid, and that's fine. But you can't talk about, yeah, Hugo, I like leather jackets. What? Oh, okay. So you want to, like he says himself, what is it? Like, I'm into men's fashion. Not the faggy stuff, but you know.
Even to Meadow, he has to immediately say it. But then again, is he just saying that because he wants to get laid? But maybe it's a little of both. I do believe him. But then, yeah, he gets mad. He drives away, blows through a stop sign. It's such a great little detail to show that he is like just such a piece of shit. And then they hang on it for a second. Meadow, I mean, I just comment on this scene. Like, she runs weird, and why is she running? But she runs to the house like a weirdo.
Yeah. No, that is true. I noticed that as well. So Tony's zapping through the channels. Lots of these shows look pretty interesting that he's going past, but he gets stuck on the Mercedes commercial. And even Carmilla approves. Yeah, it's a cute car. You should get it.
Yep. That's setting some...
Really just sort of a quick scene. I mean, is there anything else going on there, really, except...
I mean, Carmella's kind of talking about the Jackie and Meadow thing, but she's mentioning that she doesn't think they're mature, which she's very right about. Yeah, that's really it. And then Tony brings Gigi to the Bing. They have a quick scene. He's asking about Ralphie. You know, what's he saying about me? Gigi mentions he's got all this stress going on, and then even Silvio.
Yeah, that's funny looking back on it.
Yeah, then even Silvio has to mention, like, you see the bags under this guy's eyes. And Tony says, like, oh, well, he should try having my job, because Tony's got the hardest job. No one's got a harder job than Tony.
Yeah. And, you know, because, I mean, Gigi, I can't feel too bad for him. He's never been in a scene that's not about Ralphie. Yeah. I think. Like, he's never been a character. He's never had a scene, except this one, kind of, when he's like, oh, it's not just Ralphie. It's all these other things, which I didn't even realize, obviously, at the time. I didn't know he was going to pass away. But, yeah, I don't know. It is funny that this was such a placeholder of a character.
Yeah, and he mentions he's got kids he's got to worry about and all this stuff. And it is interesting because Tony's big thing is he's trying to keep Ralphie from New York, but what's happening is actually pushing Ralphie to Johnny Sack because he's going to see him for advice. And I guess the other side of it, though, is that Johnny Sack's being very reasonable to Tony here. And the way we've been seeing Johnny Sack through Tony's eyes, you would just assume that he'd be like, kill the motherfucker. We're New York and we're taking Jersey. But I love the line that he says, you know, the Sopranos, like, his dad was like this and his uncle was like this too. They always need a demon or a devil or whatever he says. And it's kind of like true because from what we've seen, like Tony, I mean, it was Junior in the first season. Then, of course, it was Richie and now it's Ralphie. Like, not to say that they're not right, but I guess in, you know, TV fashion, he does have to have this villain that's around him. And are the Sopranos building it themselves? I think in a weird way they are, or at least with this situation, Tony is, because as we see, Tony is really being stubborn in this situation. And I feel like, to the credit of Joey Pants, who plays Ralphie, I feel bad for Ralphie throughout this episode, even though Ralphie is a piece of shit and
Yeah.
he murdered a pregnant girl. But I'm kind of like, oh, Tony, offer him to sit down. My God.
Yeah. No, but it's also because Tony's acting against his own best interest. It's all his pride. So we feel like even if Ralphie is a moron, he's doing Tony's making it worse, like as we see through the episode. Well, especially, towards the end there. But yeah, so Ralphie does go to Johnny, and he's rambling about everything going on, about getting hit by him, but every time Ralphie brings up like, oh, someone needs to do something about this Tony fella, Johnny's like, well, you want to kill yourself? Pills are way faster. Like, don't be an idiot. And he wants him to like tell Carmine about him and all that. And Johnny says, New York and Sopranos have long-standing ties.
Yep.
That won't change. But Johnny's acting like the mediator here, and like, tell him you're sorry and everything. And then I believe the next scene is him actually having dinner with Tony, and then he's playing the other side. There's some real negotiation tactics going on where he's telling each side what they need to hear to get together, even if it doesn't work out.
Yeah, they do some fun stuff with that because he even says, if he made you capo, would you accept it? And then Ralphie's saying, no, never. And also,
which isn't true.
And Ralphie keeps blaming cocaine, like, oh, it's the coke. I was on too much coke at the time. And yeah, then we see the other side of it when Johnny's hanging out with Tony, and saying like, oh, maybe you should meet with him. And Tony's like, fuck that. And then of course Johnny to Ralphie's like, oh, he's very open to this. He's very open to sitting down and handling this situation.
He mentioned capo, of course, but I threw cold water on it right away, Tony. But what are you doing? And then, yeah, like you mentioned, another phone call and all of a sudden in this next scene, because he calls up Ralphie and he's like, okay, he's willing to hear you out with your apology, and Ralphie's like, oh, thank God, that's so great, because previously he's like, oh, I would never have a meeting with that fat fuck. But this is, he's actually had a day or two of tension even building further and worrying and everything. So for this is great news. He's even pleasant enough with Jackie, who's telling him that he's going to move out to this Dove character who was mentioned previously. Maybe the one they're playing pool with, I don't know. But yeah, either way, he's like, oh, I'll get you more X if you need.
Yeah, just hey, let me know anything you need. You need more X? And I guess Jackie Jr. puts up like a half-ass like, what are you talking about kind of thing?
Yeah,
but he's like, hey, don't worry. He's a deal at X. I got to connect. Don't worry about it, mate. But I love there's still between the lines. It's kind of like, but of course, I would have to get a taste of this because Ralphie's a good earner. We've been told this. Now we're seeing it in action. Yes. And then we see Melfi in therapy. And yeah, this is what we're talking about. I do like the other stuff where she's bitching about her patients, but it makes sense. Like she's getting called at 3 a.m. because someone had a bad dream about her dad laughing at her falling off her bike or something. And it makes sense because Melfi's saying like, look, I was attacked and raped and I got to listen to your bullshit now because that's my job. And that's an interesting thing. I'm sure just like with any job, you're a therapist. It gets to a point where you're like, oh God, shut the fuck up.
Yeah, because she has to sit and take care of these people hour after hour, day after day, and she gets to vent like that. This is why she's got to go see her own therapist, I presume. Yeah, and then her therapist brings up patient Soprano. She explains the moment we already saw, and that's it. I would have thought they maybe got more into him, but no, it's just a quick. So in a way, I completely understand what you're saying because the scene could have ended before that. It's not really necessary.
I mean, I guess in context of what she's talking about, I'm more forgiving of the moment because it is like she's making this point kind of that she has all these quote like average Joes or legit people that she's trying to help, but this piece of shit criminal is the one that gave her this, this small amount of concern that meant so much. But then after that, what we see, Gigi shows up with turkey sandwiches. He does mention that, this turkey's like blockage in my colon. And it's like, oh, wait, what's going on here? We'll see. Because it seems like when this happens and then it just cuts away, you're like, what the fuck? What is this scene? But they're going somewhere, people. Just stick with it.
Yeah. But as well, we have this scene with the actual apology, which is such a... it's a rough scene to watch in a way because, like you mentioned, we get to see Ralphie, and he's justified. And next time when he's next scene when he's angry about it, and he says, "Oh, I had to be bowing and scraping, and he didn't even offer me to sit down." Even with all the background, he's right in that Tony could have so easily mitigated the situation. If he's going to go down the route of having him apologize, he has to go all the way and make nice, or he should have just killed him because he doesn't even say he doesn't offer him to sit down, but he makes him apologize for everything, and then he doesn't even acknowledge it. Like, he doesn't even have to say apology accepted, but he just keeps eating, and then he's like, "Oh, anything else? What? Wait, you're still here?" And he could have said, like, "All right, thanks for coming over. I'll have a think about this." Like, even the barest of minimums would have made it so that he maybe didn't have a deadly enemy.
Yeah, he rubs his face and shit. Like, he rubs his face right in it. And yeah, it's weird because, yeah, I guess in a way, yeah, you shouldn't accept an apology. But yeah, if in this way of life, then just like Silvio said, if you're not going to try to make nice, then just kill him because you're just making things worse for yourself.
Yeah, and I even, like, at this point, weirdly enough, I expected him to say, maybe it would have been too much, but, you know, "Hey, I'm sorry I hit you. I got fired up." Like, it would have been so much smarter for him to do that, and I expect Tony to be smart, but he's handling this Ralphie situation like an idiot because he refuses to go all the way one way or the other.
Yeah, yeah. Or at the very least, just make a mention of mistakes were made or something. But I guess that maybe that ties in a little bit more with that flash we see of Tracy to Meadow, because it is just, you know, it's shortly after Thanksgiving, family's fresh in his mind, and that's the whole thing. But yeah, so then Ralphie goes back to see Johnny, and, you know, rightfully is still upset because, yeah, like he said, you know, he wouldn't even let me sit down. He's making me beg and plead and blah, blah, blah. I forget really what Johnny... Well, Johnny just does make another comment again because Ralphie comes in and is like, "We need to do something about Anthony," or whatever. And then Johnny says something like, you know, "You're going to come in here and talk like that around me?" I forget really what else he kind of tells them from that.
Well, he sort of first reacts against it, but then when Ralphie's still yelling about it, he does have a legitimate point there where "I've given my life to this thing, and this is the thanks I get." And then Johnny Sachs doesn't say anything. He just looks at him. So that's sort of the turning point where he acknowledges that, yeah, you have a point, even though you're going to the extreme, you have a point here. And next scene, we see Gigi. I'm learning his name right as he's dying.
Yeah.
On the crapper. And, you know, even at the end of this episode, I'm guessing no, but I'm thinking, like, something was in those sandwiches. Ralphie's playing the long game here. Like, he's because that would have been such a great move for him to get rid of Gigi at this point. But then, no, Ralphie would have gone into his bedroom at night and stabbed him in the foot, and then, like, "Oh, you're awake now, huh?" And he would have punched him to death, I guess. But I couldn't help thinking, like, yeah, if he poisoned him, because this is, like, so convenient for him, actually.
Yes. Yeah, it's such a brings me back to the movie we watched to set up this season, The Public Enemy, where there's basically the mob boss in that, but he gets kicked in the head by a horse and killed, and then that sets up basically this power vacuum. There's not like this revenge, it's just the guy gets kicked in the head by a horse. But yeah, and then even like going over, I know there's like another scene before we get to his death, but let's talk about his death since we're talking about him. It's funny because I like going over some of the, like, there was an article. It's dated 2006, so I assume that's when it was posted. It's with the actor that played Gigi, and he's still hot over like what happened to his character. It's 5 years later, because he kind of explains it. Like, John Fiore is still pretty miffed about getting killed. The day he learned of his imminent death, started this answering machine message from David Chase. "Hey, can you give me a call?" was all it said. Chase had never called before. Something's up. Something good, he assumed. At the time, he had a small recurring role as a mobster named Gigi Castone, and he'd been getting more lines and better scenes. Plus, his character would soon be bumped up from soldier to captain in the Soprano family. Why not a promotion? Fiore was convinced that Chase would offer a contract for a few episodes, if not a whole season. But when the two spoke on the phone, Chase sounded somber. "This is a call that I hate to make," he said. In an instant, Fiore knew he was a dead man. Well, his character was a dead man. That meant the Sopranos gig was over, which for an actor is like getting whacked for real. Fiore did not know what anyone confronting it. Oh, he did what anyone confronting a killer would do. He begged for his life. I said, no, you don't have to do this. You don't have to do this. You're the writer. You're the producer. This is bunk. Kill somebody else. Jace was apologetic, but unmoved. Nothing personal. This is what the story demands. Easing into the acceptance stage of death, Fiore asked how he would expire, and suddenly the news went from awful to absurdly awful. At first, he says, I thought it was a really bad joke. It wasn't. Chase wanted Fiore's character to die of a heart attack on the toilet. On the toilet. No machine gun ambush like Sonny Corleone murdered at a toll booth in The Godfather. Nope. For Gigi, it would be coronary on the throne. It was highly disagreeable to me, said Fiore, who sounded bitter. 5 years okay, it is later. Yeah, 5 years after leaving the show. But David said, no, this is memorable. This is different. So Fiore sucked it up and died on cue on his last day. The cast and crew handed him a signed toilet seat, which he didn't find very amusing.
Oh my god! I bet it was the actual toilet seat. Well, with that great memorial, is there more?
Little bit more. A year or so later, he ran into Chase, who asked if the Sopranos stint helped his career. I said, actually, it didn't help me at all. All my kids have to listen to the people in school say, haha, your dad died on the toilet. So yeah, there we go. Yeah, so yeah, with that fitting memorial for Gigi, the character that served as basically a side plan for Ralphie for the most part.
Yeah, with that, we're bumping up the counter of the death counter.
And that puts us at 27 on the deaths, 10 on the walkouts.
They've been getting more emotionally stable now, maybe, but the deaths then indicate perhaps not.
Yes, I mean, it has to be assumed the deaths are going to be higher, but we'll truly know. There's still, I'm still rooting for the walkouts.
Montage that helps, but then death montages as well are so prominent. Yeah, I mean, that's got to be rough. Was he in the previous season at all? Was he in there in the background running around? Is that what he was referring to, or
who? Oh, Gigi.
Yeah.
Yes, because he's the one that shoots Patsy's brother in season.
Right. We've had this exact conversation like 2 podcasts ago, but it's because he's so fucking memorable. So the scene we skipped over there, it's with Junior and Tony, where he shows up and has a conversation. They get to strategize a bit. Well, actually, first they're asking, did you ever work with someone named Trillo? At this point, I don't remember the name of the girl, but so I didn't even connect who he was talking about. I put it together later there. Oh, yeah, I had 7 daughters. Whatever. But actually, he's there to get some strats and suggestions as far as... what to do.
Yeah, what to do. And the interesting thing here is, and I mean, I don't know if this is the statement they're trying to make, but this is the statement they indirectly make because, and I guess this is the thing The Sopranos is all about, because therapy in general, the idea is that it's easier for someone else to, from the outside looking at your problems, be able to solve them. Because it's interesting to see Junior now between this scene here and then like last season to see like how smart and capable he is, but he doesn't come off that way in season 1. Like he isn't this wise Uncle Junior then when he's like, Tony, you come back hot, or you don't come back at all, or whatever he says when he comes into his shop there. But I mean, obviously that's probably they weren't fully fleshed out on who Junior is, but it works just from that outside point of view. It's easier to give advice because Junior, I feel like I like his role here, and I like how he breaks things down and the back and forth they have, and even just the small things like the way they've shown Junior get weaker and weaker, like just the small thing of like seeing all the medication on the table, like in front of when Tony sits down, there's just tons of prescriptions, and plus he's all like done up in like a robe and a blanket and everything, and he's talking about the chills, and Tony mentions how hot it is. It's like such a sad thing to be like, oh my god, that's gonna be me one day, fuck this.
Yeah, true. I mean, what you said is true, that it works for him, though I will say it is a bit strange to hear him say, oh, that's what being a boss is like, you do it like this and you do it like that, and you're like, well, you were the boss Well, Tony was manipulating you. You weren't actually the boss, and you're aware of this by now. But he has been around, so I mean, he knows what it's like, even if he personally hasn't been the boss. And he's watched people come and go, failures and successes. So apparently, he does have some wisdom in there. Just less of it when he's doing it firsthand, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think that was actually the statement that really started making me think about that. I was like, yeah, the boss? What do you know about being the boss? I mean, I guess he was a capo. But then, yeah, it's such a convenient thing because the whole thing here is that Tony kind of has to put Ralph as capo, but he can't just bump down the guy he just promoted. But then the Lord steps in and with his golden touch makes Gigi die on the toilet. And in a comical cut from him being dead on the toilet to just him in a casket, and that's the end of Gigi.
Yeah, and maybe I was, hankering for this being a poisoning, just because it's so convenient that it almost feels sloppy in the writing of like, yeah, and he died on the shitter, where I would see that as a cool, like, oh, you didn't expect it to go this way for this mob boss, he just died, what a random act. But then the fact that the whole episode they've been saying, oh, I'd never make him captain. The previous scene, Tony literally says, what am I gonna, yeah, okay, maybe I need to make him captain, but what can I do? Gigi's the captain at the moment, and nothing can bump him down, and then he's dead. It almost made me feel like, yeah, he had to have been poisoned, because otherwise the writers are poisoning him, which feels a little cheap.
Yes, and especially because they've done stuff like this before. And I don't know if it's because it's like, partially I do get the impression that they have no interest in mob stuff sometimes. Sometimes they're like, fuck this mob shit. Are you serious? We want to hang out at Thanksgiving with a weird pastor and we want to do goofs on that. But it was handled much better in season 2 when they had all that stuff with Tony being worried about a witness and the Bevilacqua kid and how it just worked out naturally by Tony being a piece of shit without even knowing it, but it like conveniently worked out for him. But that I feel like was handled a lot better. This in a season where it also they spent time on the FBI and the lamp, and then how the lamp got taken away, and it just seems like some of these things just happen when it feels like they're building to something. I guess they're subverting your expectations, much in a Rian Johnson The Last Jedi way. Red Letter Media, everybody.
Yeah. Well, at the funeral, I just wanted to point this out because I had to look it up, just to get the joke. The joke's pretty good, but when they say Elvis died that way, and then let's see, Silvio says that guy in Hollywood too, Don something, producer of The Simpsons. Did you catch that one? Did you look it up? Because it's a guy called Don Simpson. He's not a producer on The Simpsons. He's a film producer, but he mixed it up and he was like, yeah, he was producer on The Simpsons. But no, his name is Don Simpson. He died like that. So,
oh, I didn't even pick that up. Oh, that's great.
Yeah. On January 1996, Simpson was found dead in the bathroom of his Bel Air, Los Angeles home. Natural causes. What did he actually produce? It was not...
Top Gun. The Rock, yeah. Beverly Hills Cop, Flashdance. He was a producing partner with Jerry Bruckheimer. No, I assumed it was just, I was like, oh, one of the guys from The Simpsons died that way?
Yeah. And Don Simpson? Wow. Yeah, so of course the next scene they're like, oh, there's a vacancy. What are we going to do? And we do get a pretty comedic camera movement over the part of that crew where like one of these guys is going to move up and one of them's asleep. One of them's getting a stain out of their tie. And then Ralphie's just there. And I guess it's true. I mean, he is a good earner and, he gets the job done. Damn it, you might not like him, but he gets the job done. So that's the next scene. And once more, we're in Vesuvios.
And also, Tony learned basically he can't just place someone from like his crew or from the outside to keep an eye on that crew because it's gonna be the same thing. They're gonna undermine him and not respect him, and it's just gonna breed more contempt, basically. So it has to be someone that's in there, and yeah, who else are you gonna do? But
again, yeah, in the next scene, again, Tony's like, even though he's doing this, he's managing to make it feel like a slap in the face. Because it's true, Ralphie's being a bit facetious when he says, oh, I had to know it was for my merit and not for because someone died. And it's like, well, it's clearly because someone died. But still, everything Tony does is just to make the situation worse. And now you've put him in a position of even more power and influence. So why wouldn't you want to embrace him a little bit at that point? Because he will be earning for you. Tony's just like, you'll be earning more money. Don't fucking complain with me.
And especially like going back to, I mean, I haven't read The Art of War myself, but I can't imagine this is what The Art of War is telling Tony to do here. Maybe they are. Maybe The Art of War is like, yeah, don't have a drink with them. Show them what's what. Be real passive aggressive. Don't give them an inch at all. Let them
do some
bitter.
Like the great General Jim said, do some real bitch shit, some real high school stuff, and that'll sort him out. But yeah, so agreed. He's handling it awful. Like, just kill him. I've said that for a long time. Or don't. But like he can't even have a drink with him. He's like, oh, we can have a drink together. It's like he has the drink, but he leaves, and I don't know. It's just really bad. But I guess he's got Trillo on the mind and Mercedes and so on. Yeah.
Because then we have that quick scene. Well, not quick, but Jackie and I assume his friend Dove, and they're talking about Meadow. Like, have you fucked her? And it's like, she's screaming for me, dude. You ain't fucked her. And then Meadow wants to go to like a concert or something that he said he was going to bring her to. And it's great because he's just like, yeah, rack him up. Like, he's still just going to play pool because he is a fucking dick. And she's drunk, steals his keys, crashes the car, and he gets to be Prince Charming, a knight in shining armor, because he's like, don't even worry about the car. I'll just report it stolen. As long as you're okay. And it works because she's like, I want to be with you. I want to go where you go. So good for you, Jackie Jr.
Yeah, I mean, he does have a couple of moments where he's like, he could be a worse piece of shit, like you mentioned at the start. And here he could have been like, oh, my car, but he's really like doing the bare minimum as well in a way, because he's like, oh, are you okay? I should get you home. And she's like, oh my god. I mean, his previous statement is now suddenly true. So they go off together. I guess that's the end of their storyline. And I think to wrap up the episode, we get to meet the car saleswoman again, and Tony's there scoping her out. It's very clear that he came there to see her, but I guess she's into it. I don't know. Does she watch the news? Does she know who this is? Who knows? Maybe it's a turn on.
Yeah, I'd have to imagine maybe that's part of an element of it, or Tony Soprano's just got this like, sexy, bullish bear quality to him. And he's very confident, and he just rolls through, and he's like, yeah, let's take this car, and we'll go. I have a boat. Did you know that I have a boat? It's called Stugatz. Let's go there. That means balls, because I got balls as well. And yeah, we get to see I like the dynamic, because it becomes this like they're together, and Melfi is this kind of, mom type figure to them, because she has to call and lie that you can't go to and they have to be like secretive. Like, I guess that's kind of part of the fun as well. And we do get a zoom out on the boat, and we see some ducks. So the ducks are back. I mean, I assume that was intentional. I mean, because you specifically hear quacking. Like, you do see seagulls, but you specifically hear some ducks quack, and it looks like some ducks in the water by the dock.
Oh, you're so right. And it not only are the ducks there, they're in the water, enclosed by the parts of the pier, if that's the right word, and sort of keeping them sealed in there, much like a pool. So you're totally right. And it is interesting. Well, it's a bit of a parallel, because at the start they were both there in therapy, and it's like, oh, we're both here, and now neither of them are there. So it's like the opposite here at the end of the episode. Well done, y'all. Still don't know what Tony's doing. He's doing some bad decisions. I mean, this one's fine. It's unexpected. I expect this from Tony. But as far as the decisions running the crew, I feel like he barely took Junior's advice to heart. Like you mentioned, it is weird throughout the episode that, like, wait, I sympathize with Ralphie now? So they do definitely do a good job of that part, at least.
Well, and I mean, I guess it is interesting. Like, there is that moment where he asks Melfi, where he makes the comment, what's a girl like her like here in therapy? Because I mean, I guess putting it back in more of the, not that therapy's still completely accepted now, but obviously it's a lot more accepted in general than it was in 2001. But at the same time, you know, you don't know what kind of damage someone has just because, yeah, she's maybe assumingly a very successful car salesman. They're selling Mercedes, which are very expensive cars. She's all business when he comes in. He does kind of, I mean, I guess that maybe ties in a little bit with his longing for Melfi that he had at one time, where she was this kind of businesswoman, well put together. But you don't know what kind of trauma someone has, and maybe that kind of baggage you might be getting yourself into. But we'll just have to tune in and find out, my friends.
Yes, I mean, she said that, oh, serial relationship killer, basically, but he said he was trying to quit smoking, so who knows? I guess we have that to look forward to. It is funny that he almost had to ask Junior, I assume, in order to check, wait, is she Italian? How Italian is she? Like, because that's a thing for him. So that's what I assumed that was about, and nothing else.
Well, and I forget the line that Junior has exactly, where he's like, my father was a masonry expert or something like that, because Tony has some offhanded, like, somebody being a carpenter or something like that. And then Junior, he was a masonry expert, goddammit. Just a funny little Junior moment. The thing I don't get, though, because if he's talking about his grandfather and knew a guy that had 7 daughters, like, are we supposed to assume that one of the daughters is Gloria, or it's the daughter of the 7 daughters? But I guess who cares? Yeah, the main idea is she's Italian, I guess.
Yeah, that's what I took from it anyway. So that does wrap up this episode. If you have thoughts on this episode, please do send them to us at showswhatyouknowshow@gmail.com. You could send that in an email, or you could leave your thoughts on the show in general and in a review on iTunes, preferably a 5-star review. You can put in some comments there about what you think's going on currently, where we're going, and what you think we should tune in to watch in between seasons 3 and 4. So once again, you could go to showswhatyouknowshow@gmail.com to send us a message, or leave a review on iTunes. Those are very much appreciated.
Shit, I forgot. Yeah, but that's going to be coming up pretty quick, huh? We need to figure out our in between. But yes, that's all in the future. For now, there's only one thing left to say.
Oh, what's that?
Cut to black.